Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it will be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Smug Karen takes my car keys because I can't possibly be the owner. Earns herself a ride in the backseat of one of our county's finest. This incident was so stupid that I can't really help but share the story since my friends keep telling me to. What I find most weird about this is that my car wasn't anything super special. It was just a yellow 09 V6 Chevy Camaro with black stripes. When I bought it, it was super cheap because the passenger side door had been smashed in somehow and there was already 130,000 miles on the odometer. But the title was still good somehow. No idea why, nor do I really care. It was sold to me via proxy. All I knew was the car looked like a good deal. So I bought it. A friend of mine who works in an auto body fixed it for me. He said that most of the damage was to the door itself, and I just needed a new door after he made a few tweaks to make sure everything was straight. Together we managed to find a door at a salvage yard that was the same color. A little work and the car looked almost new, and it became my fun ride to commute to work or drive around when I didn't feel like using my other car. I didn't do any modifications to it. I'm not one of those guys that's into speed or crazy mods. I like the car because it looked cool and the gas mileage wasn't so bad with the V6. In fact, I wanted a V6 Camaro because I heard that they are usually in better condition than ones with a V8, because people drive the V6 more for looks than power, and do not gas it as much. I drove that Camaro for a year before running into a random Karen at a supermarket last year in September. Those places tend to draw Karens in regularly, especially in the state that I live in. I have seen many Karens, but was lucky to hardly ever be noticed by them. I was shopping for some stuff to make dinner. I was about to head home when I found that Karen with her young son all over my car after exiting the store. I'm guessing the boy was around 4 years old, and his mother was taking pictures of the kid sitting on my hood while the kid kept smiling and gleefully saying "Bumblebee." Yes, I understand the reference, and I've heard it all before. I don't like people messing with my property, and I told the kid to get off. The Karen took one look at me and told me to mind my own business. Now I'm 29 male, but I have a bit of a baby face. And my casual clothing made me look like a teenager. So I guess to her I couldn't be someone who'd have anything to do with such a nice car that is actually a pretty common car. I told the Karen to get off my Camaro, and she bluntly told me there was no way it was my car because I'm too young. I pulled out my keys and hit the alarm button on the remote. That made the alarm start blaring for a second, and her kid jumped off while screaming and crying because I'd frightened him. But rather than pay attention to her crying child, the Karen came running at me full speed and managed to shove me hard enough that I fell over. The next part is a bit hazy. I got a bump on the head and that crazy witch slurred every word she was screaming at me. She stepped on my arm and pulled my keys from my hand before I really had a chance to react. Though she did not really hurt me much. She was not a big woman, only around 5'2" or so and a twig, while I'm 6 feet and over 170 pounds. When I got to my feet, she was comforting her crying kid and telling him that I was a mean person. I told her to return my keys, but she got hissy and said there was no way the Camaro was mine. I again stated it was, and I would only give her one more chance to return my keys. And she didn't. Instead, she handed them to her kid, who proceeded to start playing with the buttons on the remote and unlock the doors. I had enough and got my phone out to call the police. When the Karen saw I was on the phone, she started screaming and charging at me again. Though this time I easily dodged her and she nearly fell on the asphalt and screamed that assaulted her. I never even touched her and said as much out loud. The 911 operator was listening to everything that was going on, and I quickly told her where we were while this insane woman was still screaming at me. And 2 police cars had shown up before long. At this point, the Karen had locked herself in my car with her son and started the engine to run the AC. I explained everything to the police, and they knocked on the window of my Camaro to get the Karen to open it. They wanted her to give them her side of the story. She claimed the car to be hers, and that I was just some stupid broke teenager that tried to carjack her. Then she bragged that she'd taken me down. The officer asked if that meant she shoved me over, to which she bluntly said yes. I told the police to look into my glove compartment, and there was my insurance card and a copy of my registration, and they could compare the name on my license. When the Karen heard that, she got out of the car and finally admitted it wasn't her, but then said there was no way it could be mine, and that she just took the keys from me to find the real owner. That quickly earned her some shiny new bracelets. She was put screaming into the back of a police car. The parking lot had cameras, so it was easy to prove the assault. Though I only really got scratches, a bruise on my arm where she'd stepped on it, and a small bump on the head. After the Karen was taken back to the station, they found she was high on drugs, which explains why she was so nuts. I of course pressed charges, though my testimony was not really needed since the police had both CCTV from the parking lot and the audio from the phone call. It turned out to be the Karen's third offense and she got 2 years in prison. Oh, and her kid was taken from her. The whole incident made me rethink owning the Camaro because it had been a magnet for people that bothered me a lot. So I sold it. Basically got back everything I had into it anyway. So I broke even. I doubt I'll want to own another sports car again. Next story. Entitled Mother accuses me of stealing my own $700 unique collectible card. So about 4 years ago, me and my classmates, back when we were teens, got into a card game called Magic: The Gathering. It's like Pokemon if that helps. I had a pretty big collection and also adopted my dad's collection, which was really valuable. During the vacation, me and my friend went to a Magic: The Gathering playing club. So now the entitled kid comes in. The day went as usual and I played with my new made friends and chilled out. I left to go to the toilet, but when I came back I noticed a kid about 9 years old looking over my card binder. I went up and asked, "Hi, are you looking at my cards?" "Yes, I like Magic: The Gathering." "Cool, would you like to play with us?" I was pretty chill even though the kid looked suspicious. "I don't fully know the rules, but yes," the kid explained. "We will teach you, don't worry." So the rest of the day went normally, but the next day I noticed the kid's mom coming up to me. "Hi, my son told me about your big card game collection." "Yes, that's true." He seemed really interested. "Actually, could you give it to him? He's young and you are a teenager." I was 15 at the time. "Sorry ma'am, the collection is worth a lot and I really like to play Magic: The Gathering. It is entertaining. I'm still a child. Besides, many adults play the game." "Come on, it's not like you need them. These are just some worthless cards." "Again, they are worth a bunch." "Okay, I understand." I thought that at this point she might give up, but here we go. "I will give you $150. It's all I have right now." "I'm sorry, the cards aren't for sale. No matter how much you would offer to pay. One card, the Gia's Cradle, is worth about $700. At this point, the entitled mother did not believe a word I said. She started shouting, $700 for a piece of printed paper? Don't fool me. I was getting frustrated. Look, I have to go home, it's getting late. If you want, I could recommend what cards to buy for your son. They are cheap. Keep in mind that Gia Scrattle is worth a lot because it is extremely old and rare, out of print. And I thought this was it. But the day after, when I was playing with my cards, the entitled kid showed up. I thought nothing of it and continued playing. But then I noticed my binder containing the most expensive and valuable cards was gone. I asked my friends if they have seen it, and one person told me that they had noticed a young kid carrying it out of the room. I immediately ran to the door and hoped to find the entitled kid. I noticed them on the other side of the door talking to the entitled mother. I saw her put the binder into her purse, and I confronted them and asked if they could return the binder.
Are you talking about the little Pokemon cards I bought for my son?
No, ma'am. The Magic the Gathering cards you asked me about yesterday. I saw your son taking it and you putting it into your purse.
These are the cards I bought for his birthday 1 week ago.
At this point, I had enough of it. Could you please show me your purse? Surprisingly, she showed me her purse, and I quickly grabbed the binder, making sure that all the cards were there. I started running back home, really mixed up about what just happened. After some time, I heard a loud shriek coming back from the road.
Help! This boy stole my boy's toy cards!
I just came home and explained everything to my parents. The next day, someone knocked on my door. My father opened it and noticed the entitled mother, the entitled kid, and the police officer. Yes, a police officer standing outside. Hello, sir. I heard your son took this child's cards. Is that right? After hearing this, I came right to the door with the cards. I interrupted. Hello, officer. No, I haven't taken these cards. In fact, these are my cards and the boy took them from me when I was with my friends. You can ask them. They will tell you the very same thing. I need more proof. Well, this kid doesn't know anything about Magic the Gathering. So how about you ask us what the cards' names are? The cards had a name and an artwork. He covered the name and asked us about the names. The kid did not know any names. Of course he didn't. And the officer gave the binder back to me. I thanked him and he apologized and my father closed the door. I didn't want to know what happened to them. I assumed they learned their lesson not to steal other people's things. I noticed them walking somewhere from time to time, and I avoided them like a swarm of wasps. Next story. We have an open door policy. The front door is always open if you don't like it here. Okay then. This happened about a decade ago when I first started looking to leave the bank I was then working for. I felt I had hit my ceiling there. Plus the commute daily to the office was a killer. So I started looking for roles in my area of expertise closer to home. And I found one for a local medium-sized building society. And I applied immediately. Coming from a Big Four bank, I spoke bankese like the veteran I was, aced all the online skills and psychometric testing, and knocked my phone interview for 6. A few days later, I got an email invite for a final face-to-face interview with the manager who I would be reporting to if I was hired. With the time and date booked in, I prepared some answers for questions I thought I'd get. Name a time you went above and beyond and so on and counted down the days. The day arrived and about an hour before my appointment, I received an email from the manager himself. Let's call him Dave. Dave said he was looking forward to our face-to-face to get to know me and get a feel for me as a person, and to please bring a hard copy of my cover letter and resume to the meeting. Thankfully, I hadn't left home yet, so I quickly printed off a copy of each and ran out the door. I got to the head office of the building society, let the receptionist know that I was there to have an interview with Dave. About 5 minutes later, Dave appeared, all smiles, shook my hand and ushered me into his office. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Dave asked me if I had any questions before we began. A mentor of mine at the time told me that if presented with an opportunity to ask questions in an interview, a good go-to question is, What's the work culture like here between reporting lines? Do you have an open door policy if people have questions or need help? So, I asked that, and Dave seemed to take a moment before responding. We have an open door policy. The front door is always open if you don't like it here. He said that before laughing. At the moment, I kind of didn't know what to do. So I laughed as well, thinking it might have just been his sense of humor. Before I could ask anything else, let alone a clarifying question, Dave asked me for my cover letter and resume. I passed them over to him and he started flicking through the pages. He then asked me a question I was expecting. Can you tell me a time you went above and beyond to achieve a goal? And I gave an answer. Dave's face didn't change as he nodded and kept fiddling with my cover letter and resume. Dave then asked me another question. Give me an example of a time you had conflicting priorities from different stakeholders. How did you prioritize and resolve the conflict? I began to answer as Dave swung his chair to his left and fed my cover letter into a shredder next to his desk before looking back at me. I was kind of shocked. I'd never seen someone do that in an interview before, so I kind of stammered. Dave motioned with his hand for me to keep going, so I started my answer again. I got a few more words out before he fed the first page of my resume into the shredder, then again looking back at me. I stopped trying to answer the question and asked, "What are you doing? Is this some kind of test?" Dave grinned at that and replied, "I'm just trying to see how you react to being thrown a curveball. And so far it's not looking promising. I figured this guy was just screwing with me, and if this is how he treats people in an interview, he must be one huge jerk as a boss." So I decided to leave. As I stood up, I said, "Thank you for your time, Dave, but I think I'm going to take you up on your open door policy." He looked a bit puzzled and asked, "What do you mean?" I replied, "I hear the front door is always open if I don't like it here." And then I left. A few days later, I asked my mentor what she thought of the interview. She said it sounded like he'd been to some middle management corporate consultant retreat and was told that it was a good way to test people for resilience, but that sure seemed like a nonsense way to her, or he just enjoyed going on power trips. Either way, she said I did the best thing by walking out. Anyways, that's my long way to say I maliciously complied to directions to use a front door by Dave the Jerk Manager. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.